Hello, everyone. I'm Rashawn Warren. I'm your host of CM I Am Me. And today we got a guest. Back in the day, I saw him as a youngster during his time in the military. Now he's transitioned on to the regular world, doing big things out there in education. But let's go ahead and bring on Dennis Robinson Jr. Let's go.
Pleasure to meet you. What's going on, Mr. Warren? Pleasure to meet you as always. Appreciate this opportunity. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, I'm glad you're here too, man. So let's get going. So tell the world a little bit about yourself.
Oh, man. Again, my name is Dennis Robinson, born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota, South Side, to be exact. Definitely married. Got freaking 3 amazing children. Like I said, Kaylani, Desmond, Dion, all athletes. My wife is also retired military too. She served 21 and a half years. That's my better half. She's amazing. I currently hold a master's in education leadership with an emphasis in organizational change. Currently employed by Walden University. I used to work for Texas A&M, transitioned on to the private sector. It's been an amazing transition. Of course, monetarily it's a better opportunity. So I'm learning on that and developing and growing. What I do is I manage accounts for military families and former military affiliates in order to use their GI Bill and get their education, of course, debt-free. So I'm a liaison between the VA and the institution itself. So what I do is I ensure that their students and family members are able to go to school and not accumulate any debt. So I just pretty much see zeros and O's, ones and O's all day. Just numbers and numbers and numbers. But other than that, that's me for the most part.
So how is that job? How is kind of the transition of being a soldier, being the one in the uniform, and then now looking out for the ones in the uniform?
Man, you know what? That is a great question. And one thing I can do is identify with them. And a lot of people too, I notice as we transition out of the military, the first thing they say is, I want to go to school. And the reason why they want to do this is because of the benefit itself. Of course, a lot of our veterans are paid to go to school, which is good. But it's a definite transition. So being that I've done that in my life and I saved up, I was prepared, I was ready for my exit and transition. A lot of soldiers aren't. So being able to be a former soldier and assist soldiers with their transition out, it helps a lot. A lot of people that I do work with have never served in any branch at all. So it's different for me as well, too. When I talk to them, they kind of lean on me, even though I might not be senior in my ranks. They lean on me due to my experience being a Chapter 33, a Chapter 31 soldier, as well as I use TA while I was in the Army. But there are certain, positions that I have, a certain experience that I have as a person utilizes these benefits now that I'm rendering them. So helping soldiers and families is always good. But a lot of times I think we just need to be simply a little bit more prepared. But I do offer them a lot of peace and poise when I say I was you once, and this is what worked for me. So be prepared for this if you're not. And a lot of people, I didn't consider that, or I didn't think about that, or I didn't even know this was possible. Yes, go here, do this, you can obtain that. So it does help and it feels good, but it is different sometimes too. You definitely want to help your people. And it scares me too, because sometimes you're just simply uninformed, even since I've been out. I got out in 2014. So for them to not have certain information, even at this stage and age in 2024, is scary. But at the same time, it's my job to ensure that and I utilize my experience to help.
Yeah, man, that's pretty good, man, because I would be scared too, like when you're soldiering up and you're going down that path, the only thing you're thinking about is things that are current, and that's military things, like taking care of the troops, you're taking care of yourself, looking at what's coming next, making sure everybody's okay. And I would assume that going into the civilian world would be kind of scary. So how was it for you? Like, when that one day you was running down the block at PT, and then next thing you know, you turn around. So how did that feel for you? Were you kind of scared? You said you were prepared, but were you scared a little bit?
Yes, of course, there's always uncertainty when you've been doing something for so long. And on top of that, too, one thing transitioning from the military to the civilian world is, of course, as us Army soldiers, we're told what to do, period. And even if you're not told, you already know. This is where I need to go. This is my uniform. This is the time I need to be there. I need to be there 15 minutes prior to that. This is the expectation of what I need to do. And this is going to last for this duration of time. You know all that before you get out of the bed. In the civilian world, it is polar opposite. If you're about to get up and get into something, half of that stuff never starts on time just by nature because it's the civilian world. But you know, that's what we pride ourselves as soldiers is being on time. So as far as my transition out, it was nerve-wracking. But at the same time, I did prepare myself monetarily, which was very important for me, and mentally. I took the time to let me know things are going to change. Now, when I had my first job, that was different. You know what I mean? It was definitely different. Obviously, the pay was different, not to promote the Army or anything like that, but the pay was definitely different. And just dealing with leadership and dealing with understanding is different, poise and everything else. So I could say my transition wasn't necessarily rough, but it was a learning experience, to say the least. It was more than a learning experience. You had to humble yourself too. There's a certain respect we get as soldiers in Army. You're a lieutenant colonel. I respected you, period, as a man, but at the same time, if I seen you in the stage that I was in, it's different when you walk in the room, and you understand what I'm saying. If Lieutenant Colonel Warren walked in the room, we render that respect, period. Now you understand you have certain leadership and certain people don't respect anybody. But for me, if I see the manager walking in or the director walking in, I'm gonna say, hey, how you doing, sir, ma'am? Everybody's just kind of doing their thing. I'm like, hey, you didn't just see the director just walk in here and he's coming in here. We're supposed to be evaluated this morning. You guys are kind of doing your thing. It's just a lack of urgency by nature. And it has nothing to do with, you know, people itself. Is just how we were trained as soldiers and how it is in the civilian world. So I had to kind of dial down, because even if you're being poised and intact and on time and doing the right things, you kind of stick out, and it's negative too. That can hurt your team a little bit if you're trying to look like the shining star. But by nature, when you're coming from being a soldier into the civilian world, your first job, that's normal for us. There's no shining star. Everybody to my left and right is doing that. Even the worst soldier is doing that. He's going to be on time and he's going to do his job. We know who he is, but at the same time, he's going to be on time to do his job. So I had to learn to kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say blend in, but just kind of dial down, see what's around me, and then operate as accordingly. It doesn't mean I do what they do, but at the same time, I do what I do to my standard, but just ensuring that I'm kind of blending in a little bit, because it will drive you crazy. It will.
Oh yeah, I remember from being civilian, return, coming from basic training. When I came back from basic training, and I was like, it was like I was programmed or something. I remember the first day I woke up, and I was at home from basic training. My brother comes in, he turns on the lights. Man, I jumped up, man. I was like, Rand. He was like, what are you doing? I said, man, and he was like, man, that army got you washed. I was like,
that's right.
Like, yeah. And from then on out, you know, I just been like locked in. Hey, Dennis, we're gonna go to a quick commercial break, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna get in about where you're from.
Absolutely.
Hello, welcome to Veritas. I'm your host, Adam Colazetti, and I'm here to guide you on a meditative adventure like no other. Join me and lose yourself in your imagination as we travel the outer reaches of the cosmos, quest for powerful talismans, and explore the inner realm of your subconscious. What might you find along the way? But be warned, fair traveler, this path is not for the faint of heart. On this path, of one thing I am certain, dragons be here. Are you ready?
All right, Dennis, we're back in the mix. So tell us more about where you're from. You say you're from the south of Minneapolis, right?
Of course, absolutely.
So how was your upbringing out in the good old Midwest?
The Midwest itself is different. Minneapolis too is blue collar. The Midwest period is blue collar, hardworking, cold, as far as you know. Like I said, it kind of developed me, made me disciplined, a lot of routine. And I lived in Minneapolis. I went to the school, a city right outside of that called Richfield. It's right south of the city. So as I was living, I was actually born on the north side, of course, but my mother migrated to the south side. My parents split. So I was doing a summer thing with my father. He lived in Illinois, Peoria, Illinois. So I was kind of extension of the Midwest there. And so everyday life for me was routine, being that my mother was single. And then I had my younger sister with me. My older sister had transitioned on, and she went to St. Cloud State University. So me growing up every day, being an athlete, doing certain things, my mother was only one person. So she'd leave $1.25 for me so I can catch the bus to school. And she'd give me $1.25 from my pocket for me to catch the bus home after practice. So you spend a lot of time alone. And one thing that I learned was travel the city, how to walk, how to talk, how to posture myself, how to kind of be unseen being out so young and doing that routine between, football was fall, basketball was winter for us, and then track was spring. I know it's a little different in Texas, but that's how we did it. So the Midwest kind of developed me. I would say it hardened me too, stuff that you're seeing every day, being on public transportation, everything like that. But what it taught me was routine and to be active. So, visually and socially knowing what's around me. So, a lot of my upbringing prepared me for the Army too, as well, before I even knew it. Being active and being visual, understand what's going on, not being tone deaf, seeing if you see people talking here or arguing over here, I might want to move over here a little bit, or, you got to engage your atmosphere. And that's what the city taught me growing up in the Midwest for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think grow up in the city myself, there's like you say, being active, being visual, or being, listening to kind of what's going on. And it's kind of weird because it's kind of like a survival thing, right?
Right.
Because, where I'm from, like, hey, you go to the wrong spot, it could be a wrap. I remember this one day, my grandma sent me to go get some Kool-Aid from the store. And my grandma stayed in this, like, well, my mom and my grandma stayed in gang infested spots. But where my grandma stayed was, let's say, not conducive to the type of color clothes I had on, right? So my grandma was like, go get this Kool-Aid. So I'm walking down the street, did not want to be out there because I already knew the time. I see this guy walking on the other side of the street and his van pulls up, and then like 4 people jumped out with like automatic rifles, right? They own this guy, but my mission is to go get some Kool-Aid. So I'm like, I'm not even like paying attention. I'm seeing it, but I'm not there. I see you, you don't see me. I get to the store. There's some nice young gentlemen standing outside the store. They addressed me with the gang greeting of the day. And I'm like, and I say what I say where my neighborhood would say. And those guys are like, oh, yeah, we trying to set people up. We thought you was going to say this. And I'm like, oh, my goodness. So when you say the piece as a youngster moving around, like it's kind of hectic sometimes. You would say your young life was kind of challenging dealing with the streets over there.
No question about it. It was extremely challenging too, and it's certain things that you had to learn on your own. I think my mom did a good job of developing me and understanding where I was at. Of course, where I was at, we gang affiliated too. We got the Midwest gangs. I'm not sure how it was in the South, but the gangs in the Midwest are a little bit different. We're not so much color affiliated, but it's knowing where you're at and where you're from. So you're going to deal with that, no question about it. You know what I mean? And even at school as well, even though going to Richfield was right outside the city, you have people transferring from there from different places and different spaces, or getting kicked out of schools and coming over there. And you're affiliated with them from over there. So most certainly, man, gang affiliation, I think, is a part of upbringing for most African-American males anyway, depending on where you're from, whether East Coast, West Coast, down South, up North, Midwest, it doesn't matter. And I think it's a part of the tribes that we come from. And sometimes we're implemented in those things simply from where you are from. You might not have no understanding or what have you, but growing up in a certain place, you're automatically connected to that group of people. So for me, it was the same thing. Being on the South Side, we had the Boys in Red, and half my family was that as well. But on my dad's side, you got a whole nother thing, being from Illinois, a bunch of GDs, a bunch of BDs. And that was just the nature of the world. So my summers, it was a different venue than it was for my everyday life going to school. But you had to know where you are, and you had to know where you were from, and you had to know what you were dealing with too. So being affiliated with certain people, certain family members too, make you affiliated too, whether you are or not. You know what I mean? So you gotta be able to stand to and stand up and stand strong.
Man, that's a good point you make. You know what I'm saying? You said being whoever you're with, you're affiliated with them, right? Because that's not only at the gangs, that's it in everyday life.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure, when you were a soldier, they would say, hey, watch out who you're hanging around with, because people are going to think you just like them. And that goes back to that whole perception is a reality type deal.
Right.
So talking about how you came up, the title of this episode is called Breaking Chains, right? So throughout your life, you're a young buck, you're dealing with all of this right here. You're trying to figure out how to navigate this. You did a good job because you were here. So that means you made it, right? And then your adult life, where you at now as a parent, as a husband, how has everything in between that been since the beginning of your life, dealing with the streets until boom, you're out here helping people as a professional? How was all of that stuff in the middle, and how did it tie into who you are today?
Man, that is an amazing question. It's loaded, but that is amazing. And I'm going to say this. One thing that I knew growing up as I was developing as a young man, a soldier, and then a professional is I knew what I did not have. I knew everything that I did not have, whether it was presence of parents, presence of leadership, or somebody to defend me, whether I was wrong or right. You know what I mean? No matter what it was, I knew what I did not have. So now that I'm bringing children in this world, I'm with a woman who I'm calling my wife, and I'm trying to develop and grow. I knew the things that I did not have. So what I tried to do is bring my children those things that I did not have. And one thing was consistency. One thing was, solidarity, especially consistency where you're living, what you're doing, where you're going. We shouldn't have to move house to house. We shouldn't have to move from this side of the city. So now you're in this district to this district. We should afford our kids the opportunity to simply be kids. And I learned that as a whole as I was growing up. So I applied that with everything that I did. So I know what I didn't have. Same in the Army. We've all had toxic leadership. And of course, that word is thrown out like willy-nilly. But we know the difference between poor leadership and toxic leadership. And we've all had toxic leadership. So I know what I didn't get. What can I give my soldiers that I didn't get? And then on top of that, assess them and give them what they need as well individually. So along my way, how I implemented everything in my life is understanding what I didn't have and what I felt if I did have that, I would be even more successful than I am. So I try to implement that in every stage and every phase of my life. Same thing as a professional. Letting people know, hey, when they're talking and they're frustrated, you don't know how this goes. It's almost like you guys don't understand. And when you can slow them down and say, actually, I served this amount of time in the Army. I was in this MOS. I actually used Chapter 31, Chapter 33, and TA, tuition assistance, while I was in the Army. So if anybody knows more how you feel, it is me. But I'm going to tell you how this can help you and how you can mitigate this from next time, because you made some wrong decisions or wrong steps, and this is how we fix it. So understanding what I didn't have or what I fell short, I just kind of implement that as I go and as I learn, and I put those in those spaces as I'm still learning. So like I said, growing up, of course, everything that I know now, it wasn't necessarily right, but those are the resources that my parents could provide, my mother could provide. You just kind of had to deal with it. It don't necessarily make it right, though. So I take those things that I didn't have, and I know, and I remember it, and I implement it as I go in every stage and every phase of life.
Yeah. I think I go down the same path, right? Because it's like, I think I did everything for my son that I didn't know.
Shout out to your son too. Good boy.
That I didn't get, right. My son, I was missing certain stuff in my life, at least I felt, right. And so I gave it all to my son. Same time, I tried to teach him every lesson that I thought that he would need from a survival aspect. But I'm gonna tell you what came out of that. At some point, I had this epiphany that, like, why am I teaching this dude how to survive? You know, like I need to be teaching this dude how to grow and develop. But only thing I ever knew was survive. And then once I had that epiphany, and then I just started focusing on, like, kind of making him be aware, helping being more smart, start talking about things that would help him grow. And then I had this other epiphany that I started thinking, am I damaging this guy?
Right.
I'm giving him all the things that I was afraid about, like, and then it was unconscious, but being aware of myself and watching him, and then I started thinking, like, man, this dude's too nice. I was like, I started thinking he's too nice because I would watch people. He would tell me these stuff, and I'm like, man, why are people taking advantage of you like that? And not that they're like being mean to him. It's just that he was such a nice dude. And he was so giving, and he just cared so much. And I thought that was wrong. I thought that was wrong because I wasn't in the space growing up to where I could be giving and I should be caring, because I was like ready, like, hey, all right, I just got to make it to today, get back to the house. And he's just going through the world due to the things that I was able to provide him. He's just going through the world enjoying things, and which he should. But I had something here from where I came from that told me that you're not supposed to be enjoying this thing. You got to work super hard, stay alive, and go get it. And I think when I joined the army started rehashing a lot of those things, because the army, again, teaching you how to go get it. Hey, we're always competing. Every day we're doing things to help us survive, or to take a life if need be, right?
Absolutely.
And we got to kind of balance all that. Do you think you did the same thing, or did you kind of feel the same way, or what was your experience with the youngster?
Absolutely. I'll say this too, to shoot you a little bit bail money. People raised off of love and people raised off survival see the world differently by nature. And so you're providing your son with a life and an experience of love because he's not in need. And I do agree with you. My son's upstairs right now, Desmond, and he's my oldest son. And I got a younger one. He's 3, so he's not there yet to kind of start developing him and talking to him a certain way. But I am hard on Des, and I do have to pull back sometimes as well, because he's not in a situation that I was too. But that's all we know. And at the same time, all we try to do is prepare them for the worst and hope for the best. But I also understand, to this day and age, we got to continue to encourage them and let them know things are going to be all right, and try to prepare them as best that we can, but not have them fearful, but just have them capable. So I do agree with you. I've done a lot of that same stuff. I do a lot of the same things. And my wife kind of tells me, hey, he's going to be all right. You know what I mean? And I'm like, no, he's not. No, he's not. And she's like, he'll be fine. So I do have to find a balance. Same thing with you, but you only know what you know. And that's how we build off of. And guess what our boys are going to do as they age and develop and go create families for themselves in the future? They're going to take the things that they didn't have, even though we've given them virtually everything, just like our parents said, I've given you everything, per our resources. But we're building young champions, men and women who are going to go out and obtain more resources than we had. And they're going to do the same thing with their children. So the things that they didn't have, not necessarily material, but the social and the emotional, they're going to develop and give it to their kids. And that's all we can do. So yes, I do identify you with that, and I'm the same way, to be honest.
Oh yeah. The cycle is kind of what's crazy, because we are not aware of the cycle, from growing up. Your awareness lies in the now and the things that people tell you about. So you're taking all this information in, and as you're trying to process it, you're like, all right, with this stuff, I need point A is this, point B is this, point C is this. And then once you start to, I guess, distance yourself from what was originally yours, meaning the continuum of our life, you start to distance yourself. You got those friends that are like, oh man, yeah, you acting different now, man. You sound like this now. You're like, absolutely, my guy. Because I'm growing, and as you start to grow and you start to develop, some of us start to have a hunger for more. Because we're like, man, you know what? I actually can do this thing. I'm actually good at this thing. And then you start looking back at your family. Nothing's wrong with my family. I love my family, but I'm not like them anymore, because when I say I still am them, I'm not like them anymore, because I start to see different things. I start to associate myself with different people. Like I got a family now. And now I'm driving the train. So then you start to realize some of them things that they gave you wasn't necessarily conducive to success in the long run. But it's probably based off of kind of where they stop, right? My mom, my grandma, and them, they only have like a certain level of education. I'll use that as a point. And their level of education, I'm pretty sure they poured everything they could into me. But what they poured in me the most was practical life experience.
Right.
They poured into me all of those things like you mentioned earlier, which they saw that they felt that they can give to me to survive. But for my son, I'm pouring into him practical life experience. I'm pouring into him the experience that was garnered from me being a college student. I'm pouring into him the experience of me being a military leader. I'm pouring into him my experience from a higher educational standpoint, and he's learning all these things. And now, boom, and he's going to roll because, like when I told you, the title is Breaking Chains, but what happened was, I broke it a long time ago.
That's right.
And maybe I didn't realize when I broke it until I sat back and watched somebody else develop, and they were no longer like me. They were no longer like what I saw every day. And then I'm like, oh man, I actually did something of value. And now I'm trying to poke it and develop them a little bit more. Hey, we're gonna go to a quick commercial, then we're gonna come back and I want to talk about your uncle Mark Robinson.
Hey, it's AC of AC Sports Live, an interactive sports talk show where your comments are part of the show. Every show we focus on the sports stories of today with commentary on sports takes, my 2 cents, which is a reaction to my social media feed, Sports Flicks, where we take a look at sports movies and give a quick review. We have a segment called Mental Reps, where we have words of inspiration to help battle the dark side of men's mental health. And then there's the Tender Love Report. Who's being soft or petty in the world of sports? All takes are welcome under one condition. Say it with your chest. I'll see you there.
And we're back. So before we left, we said we're going to come back and talk about your uncle, Mark Robinson. When I read your stuff, you said your uncle Mark shared a quote with you about the principles and methods. So tell us about that.
Methods are many, principles are few. Methods may change, but principles never do. And when he told me that, it just literally it just stuck in my heart. And again, he was a senior chief United States Navy. I actually went out there when the George Washington was there in San Diego. I went out there, it was 2004. I graduated 2005. So I went out there in 2004 and he kind of showed me around. It was an amazing experience. Of course, I'm just a kid from the inner city. First of all, I've never been to California, period. So I'm seeing palm trees, I'm seeing the ocean and everything. So my experience level is going up off of that alone. Then you bring me on the George Washington. It was docked there in Oceanside, Lemon Grove. It was in San Diego at the time. And so, he's showing me stuff. I actually saw my first M2 50 cal. I didn't know it was at the time. And I seen the first one for the first time and he let me mess with it. Of course, it was unloaded. He was just kind of showing me around. I was like, dang, y'all use this? And he's like, well, yeah. You know what I mean? It was small potatoes for him not to know about 2 years later, I would literally be doing the same thing. But that phrase, methods are many, principles are few. Methods may change, but principles never do. I take that in every stage of my life. And, from 0 to 18, we feel like we lived a lifetime, right? So when we're getting out there, when we're going to college or doing whatever, we think we know everything. I know I did. I felt 0 to 18, the things that I endured, parents splitting, going from house to house, doing certain things, being an athlete. I just thought I knew it all. But literally from 18 to 23 or 25, literally changed my life in knowing how to manage bills. You know what I mean? I'm so focused. My mom used to pay the bills or my dad used to handle everything. Now I'm paying bills. Now I have to manage my money. Now I have to keep my appearance up. My mom's not paying for haircuts anymore. My dad's not paying for haircuts anymore. So one thing that I learned throughout my life is, again, methods are many. You can do whatever you want, but principles are few. In order to be successful, you have to maintain the base of what you know on how to grow. So methods may change in life, time, circumstances, but if you keep the same principles that you know that work, if you keep the same principles that you were taught that are positive, and you grow, keep discipline, keep routine, no matter what you're going through in life, no matter what stage you are in life, if you know the principles that you created will supersede any methods at all. So methods may change, principles are few. Methods may change, but principles never do. Never do. Keep your principles, transition through life. You're going to have your highs and lows, but continue to push through, keep your principles, and build on top of those. Always build on top of those.
Oh man, that's super solid, right? And then I started when I was reading your stuff. You also talked about you not being afraid of losing, right?
Right.
So I can tell you, I typically when I go speak to people, I tell them about how they got hope, right, and tell them that they can win. And I say this because I tell people the story about how bad of a student I was. Like I was not a good student coming up through high school. I was not a good student coming up. Actually, I wasn't a good student in elementary school. I wasn't a good student in middle school. I wasn't a good student in high school. I wasn't a good student in college. But those things just kind of didn't align with me. So basically, I just kind of been failing in the educational exploits. I just been failing. A lot of things I try to do the first time hardly ever go right. Second time hardly ever go right. But I failed all the way down the ranks to Lieutenant Colonel 1, right? I failed all the way down the ranks to being a scholarship athlete, right? Like none of those things happened right the first time, from getting cut from basketball teams or being academically ineligible in school. But at the end of the day, I've achieved some things in all of those zones that not many people have. So not being afraid of losing, because I know losing and failing is part of the game, as long as you just don't lay down and quit. What is your take on that? How do you see it?
I think losing is actually important. Now, what stage where you lose, that can differ. If you lose in the big game, obviously in life, whether it calls for life prison sentence or death, you don't want to get to that point to lose. At the same time, I think you understand me. So you can lose in certain aspects to where you can't get your chips back. But throughout life, those losses is what's going to build you in order to be ready for the big moment. You can't be afraid to lose. And a lot of times when people are afraid to lose, you don't go out there and seize those opportunities because you're shortchanging yourself because of the embarrassment of loss or what people are going to say. For me, that never mattered. I had been through so much already that losing is a part, like you said, a part of the game. And once you lose, you grow and develop from that. So it's going to prepare you for that big moment next time, and you'll be ready for it, whether dealing with people or dealing with opportunity. I think you said a lot, man. In order to fail and be in a position that you are, from what I know, as a college basketball athlete and as a soldier in the United States Army, you're in those executive levels. You know what I mean? Not many people go D1, even though they have the talent. Not people go to OCS and get to lieutenant colonel, even if they have the talent and the ability. You have to do what it takes as far as winning and losing in order to move up those ranks. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, loss is very important on your journey, but how you accept a loss is what makes the man or the woman. We're going to lose, period. How you come back from that is what matters. And I think it's very important that you gain confidence from that, because one thing you know about losing is if you've done not enough or if you've done too much. But the people who are going to stand on the sideline and laugh at you, the people who are going to stand at the sideline and criticize you, they're not going to have the information that you know from being out there on that field in life, whether it's a job interview, whether it was a test, whether it was, like I said, a basketball trial or anything that you're dealing with in life. You have that experience that they'll never have because you took the opportunity they did. So losing is important. Losing is only a loss if you stop trying. And that's one thing that people have to understand. So in life, you're going to lose, but it's only a loss if you stop trying. If you lose and go right back to it, whenever you're ready, or rebuild yourself and go back to it, because once you make it, if you graduate and get that bachelor's degree or that master's degree or that doctorate degree, yeah, I failed my dissertation 2 times in a row. But once I was eligible again, I went back. So now I'm Dr. So-and-so now. So who's laughing now? We're not going to talk about them 2 times that I failed my dissertation. We're only going to talk about that 1 time that I passed it. And that's what's important. So losses are very important. Like I said, you've taken many and you're in a position that you are now because the loss wasn't the end. The loss was the experience and you kept going. So like I say, everything you do, hey, you're going to lose. Just got to keep going.
Yeah. I think that's a great share too, because when I my young majors, I got 2 super smart dudes right now, right? And but I focus on telling them how to win. I do a lot of focus on, like, hey, don't do that. That got me when I was right there. You know what I mean?
Right.
I went down right there. That if you don't do this, you might suffer that same fate, my guy. And even with my youngster, I tell him about all that stuff. He's like, Dad, you failed at that. I'm like, bro, like I was going down left and right, my man. But his eyes only see finished product, like you say,
Right.
Dr. Robinson, right? Everybody see Dr. Robinson, but but at the end of the day, they don't see them hard times, because sometimes when you're not successful the first time, you get down on yourself,
Right.
because you start to wonder, like, why did this happen to me? It's kind of like those people who really have a dream. They really want to accomplish something, and that first opportunity they get, they go for it, and boom, it don't make it. And then the second time, it don't make. Oh, I'll use this little podcast for example, right? Everything I learned was from watching some other people do it. Like somebody asked me to do a show. I'm like, I'm good at talking, jump on a thing. I was watching other people's shows. Then I was like, whatever, I'll figure all this stuff out. But it started off working. And then the first people that I was working with kind of fell apart. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start my own site. I'm gonna start my own website. I'm just gonna start pulling people that add a value and switch it up a little bit. But I didn't know how expensive this stuff was either. Like to get this thing, to go get that camera, to go get that computer, to go get that mic, to go. And I was like, but once I told myself, man, this when people started telling me, man, I was thinking about doing something to myself, but I watched your show.
Right.
When people telling me like, hey, man, you're bringing on quality people, and really, when I have to look back, it's not that I was looking for quality people. I just know quality people.
Right.
Now we got quality people such as yourself, who I think highly of, sharing their stories, and other people out there knowing, not thinking, they're knowing that they're not out there by themselves, and other people are coming from the same experience that they have. And now they start feeling like they can win. You know what I mean? I'm telling you, somebody hear your story about how you navigate in the streets. Somebody hear your story about how you were once a soldier and you were afraid to transition. And once you transition, you became successful and lifted your educational game again. Now people are feeling like, well, shit, man, like he got out there and did it. I might can do it too. So that's the thing that we got to take from all of this. And that's what we're trying to share. But them losses fed into being able to speak on these particular things. You talked a little bit about the importance of understanding oneself and one's surrounding.
Yes.
How do you practice self-reflection and self-awareness?
Oh, man, what a wonderful question. One thing, too, with self-awareness, I was growing up, and like I said, I listened to a podcast, $1 Million Worth of Game. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Mm-hmm. And I listened to the series that they had 50 on there. And one thing that he said was, we all know a tough guy, in essence. I'm paraphrasing. We all know a tough guy. But with the tough guy, he does tough things, and it makes him lead a tough life. And when you get in these tough positions, in order to get out of them, you got to be tough. And what comes from that is more tough stuff. I don't want to be tough. That's what he said. I don't want to be tough. I had to learn from that. I want to live a life that I want to live and not have to answer to nobody to live it. And so with that being said, I had to learn too, as I grown and developed, as you know, too, like you said, when you're separating from family and friends because you're seeing more and doing more, you got to understand you have to carry yourself a different way. And I had to do a lot of soul searching by nature, because everything that was said wrong to me, I want to step to it. I got to let them know who I am and what I'm about. And at the same time, you don't have to. So I started reading this book. It's called Meditation is the First and the Last Freedom. I read that, I don't know, some years ago, man, probably 2013, 14-esque. And I read this book by the author's name, Osho. It's called Meditation is the First and the Last Freedom. And what it teaches you is to see yourself as yourself, outside of yourself at all times. So when you get those points to where you're angry, you have to train your mind. Of course, you got to process the information extremely fast. And when you're seeing yourself as yourself, outside yourself, you start to view it differently. For instance, let me ask you, have you ever heard yourself on camera for the first time? The very first time?
Yeah.
You sound different, right? From then how you sound in your head and in your mind. And
yeah,
you played plenty of high-level basketball. I know this as a fact, and I've had the fortunate enough to play with you on the same court. You've watched yourself on film, have you not?
Yeah.
And does it look and feel different than what you were doing when you were doing that move, whether you were jab stepping, going to the rack? When you see it on camera, you're like, dang, I could have went harder than that, or I could have went higher than that. Or I could have got that ball out of my hands quicker than that, but I felt I had it when I was doing it. It didn't feel like that. And the book kind of teaches you when you're in the moment and you're saying and doing certain things, when you understand how you look and how you feel and how you think outside of yourself, watching yourself as another person, it kind of hones into everything. And you know how to develop and assess any situation, whether it's a high tension one, or it's a violent one, or it's a sentimental one, or it's an opportunity. Sometimes you can't just be like, oh no, I'll take it. Sometimes you have to preserve and understand, sure, I'll think it over, I'll assess it and get back to you. So long story short, to develop and know myself, I had to understand that you have to see yourself as yourself outside of yourself and know what you're dealing with and know who you're talking to. And that's just an important thing in a matter. You know what I mean? You just got to know what's going on around you at all times. And that's how you develop and grow and give yourself and be a decent product.
Yeah, I like that that perspective. When you say, have the first time I listened to myself, I was like, I sound like that.
Yeah, that's how I was too. Yeah.
And then I remember I say this to you. This is kind of funny, right? Thinking about basketball. So I'm in college. You know, I was nominated McDonald's All-American when I was in high school.
It's a fact.
You know, I wasn't getting run like I wanted to get run. So I tell my coach one time, I said, hey, I need the ball more, coach. I need the ball more. He says, Ray, you know you lead the team in turnovers? I was like, what? And he was like, hey, you lead the team in turnovers. And if you get the ball more, that means the other team gonna get the ball more. My mind had to process for a hot second, but I thought to myself, I'm not aware of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not that way at that time in my life, but thinking back on it, I'm like, in that moment, I was not aware of who I was and maybe not what I was doing appropriately. I would watch the tape, and when I watched the tape, I'm like, dang, I'm hot caking that thing. I'm turning that boy over. And then I had to focus on how to improve myself. And that's just life as a whole, right? You know, that's kind of, we face adversity throughout our lives, and we face it in all these different little areas, right? And what starts to happen is those things start to build up. And then now you just got this one big adversity party. And because you realize you've been fighting through a lot of things, maybe it's from a mental perspective, maybe it's from, if you're in the military, maybe it's from a physical perspective, or, you know, maybe just from an emotional perspective because people are just bearing down on you.
Right.
You know, what role has adversity played in shaping your character and leadership?
Man, that's a wonderful question too. What role adversity placed in my development in leadership? This might sound crazy, but adversity and pressure I feel I need in order to be my best. I think adversity is very important, especially when you're leading a group of people around you. They have to know that you're battle tested and you're capable in order to believe. And if you can deal with adversity, you can deal with anything. And like I said, you got to quiet out the noise in essence and focus on the plan and focus on the mission at hand. But adversity is very important in who I am as a leader because, like I said, I need it. Sometimes I'm not saying that I'm going to start anything, but I will sometimes find problems at work in order to make things more proficient or effective. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of, like I said, working where I work right now, I see a lot of things that we could improve. Some people will feel, well, we've been doing this for so long. I was like, but that doesn't necessarily make it the most effective or right. We can change this, so we can implement and we can, fix this to be better and more effective, faster or quicker or more accurate. And a lot of people are kind of like, oh no, I don't want to deal with that. But that's the adversity that you need in order to take our production to the next level. We have to go through that hardship. We have to go through the change, the retrain, and the getting used to the new. And that's a part of adversity as well, is change. So I invite adversity. Of course, it's a lot of pressure on you, but we just got to deal with it. Because after adversity is change, and after adversity is new. And that's sometimes what we need. Not all the time, but sometimes we do need that. So adversity does shape me, and I actually invite adversity because I'm going to learn and grow from it. Those losses throughout that adversity is going to make me better at what I do and who I am.
Yeah. I'm on board with that 100%. We were, when you sent your notes, I was reading something. You were talking about James Baldwin. Baldwin is my guy. I mean, I could listen to that dude all day. That dude's so eloquent, so thought provoking. And you had that one thing and said, how has the ideal of being African without memory and American without privilege,
Absolutely,
impacted your journey? Talk to me about that.
Whew, that's heavy. And it's heavy because we are in that position as African American males. And if you think about it, well, in my case, being a former soldier and being out now navigating the higher education world, I'm learning it doesn't necessarily matter what you're capable of. It doesn't matter your qualifications. It still matters who and what you are. It doesn't matter. I have to go in everywhere that I go and earn respect. I got the credentials, I got the time, I got the experience. But when they go in and when they see you, they're like, oh, and then my name is Dennis Robinson on top of that. So when I go in for a job interview, I don't look like your traditional Dennis Robinson. And people are like, well, what does that look like? It doesn't look like me. So I have to go in and prove myself every time, every institution that I've ever been in, whether it's TSTC, Texas A&M, and now I'm at Walden University. You have to go in and then you're kind of treated a certain way, but once you grow and develop and show them who and what you are, that's what it is. And so being African with no memory is why sometimes we as a people, as African Americans, are lost. We only know what we're given because we don't know of our past. You know what I mean? We were brought here, we understand the story, we don't have to get into that. And so we have to grow and develop with no resources, no anything, and we're pulling ourselves up by our own bootstraps for so long. That's why we venture out and lash at one another, because we're mad at ourselves. But it's not necessarily our fault. We just have a stronger and harder path to take. And so they say we're American, but we don't have that privilege. And that's been through the dawn of time, being 3/5 people, separate but equal. And even now, there's a lot of things that happen to a certain group of people that don't happen to others. Is it coincidence or is it fact? Who knows? But it is what it is. And so being a part of that, when you understand that, it doesn't necessarily make it true. It just makes it what it is. And when you understand and you can navigate that, you kind of push a certain way to be yourself, but at the same time, be better than the standard. And when you're better than the standard, then people can't argue. We need him. It doesn't matter what he looks like. It doesn't matter what he said or what he does. This is what he can do. And it's better than that. So, like I said, being African with no memory is coming from a place that we never had the opportunity to fully have that heritage and understanding who we are and where we come from, and being placed in a place and them telling you what you are and what you're going to do and what you're going to be, and then breaking away from that because it wasn't true. But a lot of times we did not know that when they're calling us certain names, or we're picking cotton, or we're doing certain things that's unbeknownst to us, or we can't go in that bathroom, you think you're less than, or we're just the same. So that's just simply what it is, like African with no memory and then American with no privilege. You got to find a way and understand, and knowing that this is the case, now what are you going to do about it? Two things you can do. Perspective. We cry through the storm or we dance in the rain. And obviously you're dancing because I'm dancing too. Dancing in the rain. Dancing in the rain. You can cry through the storm or dance in the rain. That's it. And obviously you're dancing because I'm dancing too. It's all perspective.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we start to see, right? We start to see dance partners, if you will. We started to look for those other folks that are doing it too. But we also take a look back and, like, oh, you know what? That guy right there got some potential. I'm about to start pulling folks up. That's kind of the path that I've taken. I'm going to start pulling folks up. Hey, I'm going to tell people the real. Every day, I'm going to tell people the real. But sometimes, you tell folks the real and people think you're making it up.
Right.
I'm going to give you this example real quick, right? This is recent. This is super recent. This is 2 days ago recent. So I'm talking to my youngster. I'm telling them, hey, man, this is my experience. This is how I feel about the world. I'm telling everybody, though. I'm not pinpointed to one demographic. I'm telling everybody. People, I'm a large guy. My voice is super deep. Evidently, I have this look, I guess. I got this look, I guess, when you don't know me. And some would say, It's intimidating. I was telling people about this, and they were like, "Oh no, I don't see you like that." Blah blah blah. I'm like, "Well, you don't have to see me like that. I mean, but when you first, you probably did. But now that you know me, you just don't have that feeling anymore. But typically, when people see me for the first time, they're intimidated by me. I can see it in their face from leaders that I meet for the first time. I can see it. I can see it in peers. I can see it. I'm not imagining this thing. This guy comes in to talk to us. Me and another 6'7" guy. We're sitting down. We sit at the table. You know what the first thing this joker say to us? He says, "Man, you two guys, you so intimidating." I cut my eye, and I'm like, "Here we go."
Right.
You know what I mean? Because to that guy, it didn't mean anything. To me, it meant a lot. So when people say things like that to me, and all I'm doing is grinding,
Right.
all I'm doing is what's right. All I'm doing is developing folks the way you told me to. And then people see me and they can come up with this, I don't even want to call it a false narrative, because I can see why you may be. You know what I mean? I guess if I have to rationalize it, I can see why you may be. But then I had to ask myself, Dennis, why am I never intimidated? Why you think it is? Why am I, Rashawn Warren, never intimidated?
Confidence, baby. Confidence, man.
Well, and I'm confident and I'm not afraid.
Right. Battle tested.
Like if someone, I've been through a lot, I'm physically bigger than everybody, I'm probably stronger than everybody. And then I start to trying to rationalize this thing, is that, are people afraid of me? When people see me, are they afraid of me? So therefore they become intimidated. And once they get to know me and they say, "Oh, he's not a threat," therefore I'm no longer intimidated. You know, just that's something to think on, right? We're gonna go to a quick commercial break and we're gonna come back and I'm gonna give you the floor and I want you to talk to the people out there, all right?
Yes, sir. You got it.
Hi, Joel Maurer, founder of Dink Ninjas. Dink Ninjas was dreamed up and started right here in Austin, Texas, a dynamic pickleball community. We arm pickleballers with the paddles, apparel, and accessories to dink like a ninja. Dink Ninjas is dedicated to supporting mental health awareness and cancer research. Shop our full lineup at dinkninjas.com.
So we're back going into this final segment. Hey, we done talked about a lot. That hour blasted by, man. That hour pretty much blasted by. I want to give you the floor, but first, I want to thank you for coming on and giving some of your insight. I think it's important that we have serious conversations. I don't think any conversation is difficult. I just think sometimes people just aren't willing to share what's in their mind
or ready.
Yeah, because of how they feel that they would be perceived. They're like, oh shit, man, somebody gonna see this thing. They might think this about me, right? But there was a question that I wanted to talk to you about that I didn't get to hit on, and I want to hit that question and then turn it over to you.
Of course.
In your original documents you sent me, you talk about authenticity.
Yes.
And authenticity is something that I believe is missing, but give me your perspective on it and how you see it in your daily life.
Absolutely. I think it's very deep. And honestly, you were one of the first people, especially in the Army, that I've seen do and be that. So let me be clear. And it's not just because you are on this platform. That's a fact. You've always been who you are. And I think it's very important. And that's why people connect to you. You were able to code switch and be that officer, but you still navigated with us as an enlisted on the basketball court and getting us to simmer down, and we were successful on the court, but at the same time, you could remove that, and when we seen you was still, how you doing, Captain Warren, Lieutenant Warren, Major Warren? There was no difference. We still respected you both ways. So authenticity, I think, is very, very, very important no matter what, if you're a leader or if you're a person. Number one, you got to be able to look yourself in the mirror. And I think that's very important. If I could bring this to my bathroom right now, I would show you. I wrote in my wife's lipstick right above me, it says discipline. So when I go in there and I brush my teeth every day before the gym, I look up, I see discipline in red every single day. And I have to be authentic to myself. I'm up here doing this. I'm no longer a soldier. I'm no longer needing to be in shape. I'm doing this because this is who I am and I want to remain disciplined. So when I go certain places and do certain things, people know this is simply who I am. It's not a facade, period. Now, when you're going into the workplace or you're dealing with society, period. If I take this shirt off, I look like I've done 50 years in the feds. I know for a fact, if you come out of that hoodie, it's the same thing. So you come out of those army greens, people don't know what's under there. And you might look and feel different. 6'7", very great shape, you've always been. That's authenticity, though. It doesn't matter. Because what you provide for a unit or what you provide as a leader to your subordinates is next level. And we have to get out of that. We have to be okay with letting people know who we are doesn't necessarily make any difference. What I am doesn't make me who I am. What you see doesn't make me what it is. It is what it is. We have to know that the hood is in us. It ain't necessarily on us. But at the same time, what's in us allows us to do certain things and be certain things for others. And that's why you're able to go in these rooms and deal with certain things as a leader, but you could come right back out and talk to me as a subordinate to say, hey, this is what I know. This is how they told me, but I'm going to tell you like this in order to make me successful. So code switching and being authentic to those who you can be is important, but being authentic to those who are in there too, letting them know there's certain things we will not do. And I'm okay to deal with the consequences as a leader. So authenticity is very, very, very important because at the end of the day, we have to look ourselves in the mirror. We have to look our spouses and children in the face every day. And we got to be able to humble ourselves and be okay with everybody not liking us. But at the same time, when your work ethic is solid and you're doing everything you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to do it, it doesn't matter how authentic you are because your productivity is going to speak for itself just in life. And you are a fine example of that. Like I said, I've seen you continue to skyrocket. Heck, I'm going to say it on camera. I literally looked at your capstone for your master's and took a lot of pieces out of it. Of course, I didn't plagiarize or anything like that, but a lot of your methods and how you built it and how you did your capstone, I utilized for mine. And guess what? I was a first-time go. Period. You were authentic. It didn't matter. You were already successful in that realm. Did you just say, oh, you got to figure it out on your own? You were a leader. You were authentic. Hey, this is what helped me. Read it over. If you could pull from it, by all means. If not, all means. The authenticity of wanting to help somebody and being yourself. It doesn't matter. How successful you are doesn't help or hurt me. But why would I want to see you lose? That's being authentic. That's being a person that's not afraid of somebody exceeding them or extending farther than them. You helped me. It didn't have no reason to at all. I'm here on a platform with you right now. No reason at all. You're yourself, authentic. Hoodie, Lieutenant Colonel Warren, all day. That's who I've always known. You're a stellar leader and a stellar person and always have been. And like I said, you're literally the poster child for authenticity. And I want to be that too, a junior version of that. So being authentic is very important. Always be yourself no matter what. Continue to work hard. Your work ethic will speak for yourself, but you shouldn't have to turn on and turn off who and what you are as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do. Both can live, both can coexist, and both are true.
That's the premise of this thing is you got to see yourself to be yourself. But I will tell you, once upon a time at the beginning, I thought I had to be a certain way to make it in this place. I truly did. And then one day, one of my leaders, me and some other young officers were sitting in the room with a senior officer, and he was talking about how classical music or something like that helps your brain develop. So he was going around the room asking everybody what they listen to. And I said, I listen to gangster rap. Everybody bust out laughing. And I was serious. I was thinking like, what the hell y'all laughing at? That's what I was thinking. And they was like, man, you crazy. What'd you listen to? I'm like, I listen to gangster rap because I identify with that. The room gets quiet because when I hear those stories, I've seen those stories. Like that's life. Not that I want to go out there and do all of that, but that is a measurable part of my life. I could hear a story and like, yeah, I just saw somebody get shot the other day. Man, my homeboy just overdosed the other day. Man, like I got beat up last week. These things are making sense to me. So I wish that day never happened. The only reason I say that because that's a day that made me feel that I wasn't like everybody else. But it's also the day that I realized I don't got to be like everybody else. Because I'm sitting in the same room with everybody. I'm the gangster rap guy. I'm sitting in the same room with everybody. I'm about to go write this op order. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So, hey, so with all that being said, man, we're gonna go into its conclusion. I'm gonna hand it off to you, Dennis. Well, if you had something you want to share with everybody who's listening and who's watching, what would it be? The floor is yours.
Life is a series of moments, and moments pass. So let the good ones last as if it's all we have. Understanding that everything gets old. If you fail, it's okay. It's all good. It's what you do after that. You got to keep going no matter what. What defines you and your legacy is not what was done last. It's who you are the whole time. So continue to try. Even if you continue to try and never make it, it doesn't matter. We're going to know him as a person that always tried. We're not going to know him as a person that always failed. The only people that are known are the people that fail. Is the people who try and quit. So continue to do what you want to do. Continue to believe in yourself. Again, whatever it is or wherever you come from, it's in you. It ain't on you. Be yourself at all times. Put the work in. Let your work speak for you.
If people want to get a hold of you, how would they get a hold of you? Is it easier to reach you on the social media?
You can do the social media thing. I personally don't have Facebook. I do have Instagram, which is Robbie_La Máquina. Of course, that is Spanish for the machine. So Robbie_the machine. And also my email address is Dennis_Robinson2000@yahoo.com. And of course, I'm always reachable if you want to reach out and just talk, get a little bit more information or on what I do or who I am or how I got through things. I'm always open for that. Each one teach one. And again, you are a poster child for that. I appreciate this opportunity. Nonetheless, I've learned from you as a soldier and as a man and student. So thank you. Please continue doing what you're doing. You're giving us the voiceless a voice. And I'm definitely grateful for this opportunity.
I appreciate that. Hey, everybody. That's Mr. Robinson right there. So today we're going to go ahead and end this thing off. I want to thank everybody for listening in. If you know, as all, if you want to have any questions or you want to try to get with us, just visit cime.net and we'll go from there. We're out.
Listen.